lot. Jeff is my other boss. I am recently, what is my official title now?
Lifetime trustee.
Lifetime trustee of Meals on Wheels Atlanta, which means I've kind of sort of retired from the board, and I only say kind of sort of because you never retire from the board of Meals on Wheels Atlanta. I have a few remarks to make, and then Walter and I are going to have a discussion. I hope some of the things I bring you today will make you laugh. I'm going to start with something my mother always says. October 20th, I will turn 66 this year. My 90-year-old mother, who's with me today, Hattie Edmondson, Mama, just raise your hand away. My mother takes great joy in saying, I never thought I'd live long enough to see my daughter be a senior citizen. She loves to say that. That's more important than saying that I was on television. But she's 90, my auntie, who will be 92, who is my father's only surviving sibling. So I'm hoping that my genes are my mother's so that I can live a very long, healthy, and prosperous life. My mother always says also that as I am, she says to me, as you are, I once was. As I am, you one day will be. Now, she's been telling me that all of my life, but it really didn't hit until I hit 60. And that's when Arthur came to visit, and I'll leave it at that. One thing I miss about being at WSB are viewers and the things that they would send me. And this is one I want to share with you today. Our birth is our opening balance. Our death is our closing balance. Our prejudiced views are our liabilities. Our creative ideas are our assets. Heart is our current asset. Soul is our fixed asset. Brain is our fixed deposit. Thinking is our current account. Achievements are our capital. Character and morals are stock in trade. Friends are our general reserves. Values and behavior are our goodwill. Patience is our interest earned. Love, it's our dividend. Children are our bonus issues. Education is brands, patents. Knowledge is our investment. Experience is our premium account. The aim is to tally the balance sheet accurately. The goal is to get the Best Presented Accounts Award. Don't you love that? The balance sheet of life. While preparing to speak to you, I said, I'm going to do some research. And that's one of the things about being in college, working on your master's degree, you do an awful lot of research. Many people ask me, why are you back in school? Why aren't you out somewhere on a beach? Because I always wanted to teach. And in order to teach on a college level, I have to have a master's degree. I don't want to carry what I've learned over 45 years in the business to the grave without sharing it with lots of people. So that's why I'm in school. Pew Research, Religion and Public Life Project, recently did a survey in August talking about how long we're going to live and what Americans' views are on aging, medical advances, and radical life extension. Now, they say by 2050, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, 1 in 5 Americans will be 65 or older, and at least 400,000 will be 100 years old or older. We have one 100-year-old in here, right? Raise your hands. She's from Meals on Wheels Atlanta. It goes on, the Pew Research asked whether people personally would choose to undergo medical treatments to slow the aging process and live to be 120 years old. Now, I'm looking at at your faces to see what your reaction will be. Okay, I'm going to see how you all feel about this. Who wants to live decades longer? Who would like to live to be 120? Just raise your hand. Okay. That's a minority, which is interesting. Well, guess what? The rest of you who didn't raise your hand, that's the majority. Most people said they did not want to live to be 120. 2/3, 68%, that most other people, however, would. And by similarly large margins, they expect that radically longer lifespans will strain the country's natural resources and be available only to the wealthy. Isn't that interesting? The findings also suggest that the U.S. public is not particularly worried right now about the gradual rise in the number of Americans getting older. Nearly 9 in 10 adults surveyed said, quote, having more elderly people in the population is either a good thing for society or does not make any difference at all. Just 10% of the people they surveyed said they thought it was a bad thing, those of us are living longer. Americans also appear to be generally optimistic as they look forward to their own futures, including old age. And this is what I like. Most say they are satisfied with the way that things are going in their lives today and expect that 10 years from now that their lives will be even better or about the same. They also say that younger adults, those in their 30s and 20s, are more optimistic about growing older. But even among Americans ages 65 and older, fully 2/3 expect their lives to be better. And the other thing, they don't worry a lot. Now maybe that has something to do about us being baby boomers. The interesting thing is they say the median ideal age span now, when you ask people how long they would like to live, my mom's age, 90. That's the age most people say. 90's fine with me, as long as I'm in good health, then take me out. The current life expectancy right now, average between men and women, is 78.7 years. So if you're over 78 years old, you're beating the average. How many we got over 78? All right, give them a round of applause. And then the last figure I'm going to share with you from this Pew research, which I just thought was fascinating. Guess what, girls? We last longer than they do. Guys, I got some good news and I got some bad news. The overall average age life expectancy in the U.S. at present is 78.7, although women tend to live longer, 81 years, 6 years, men 76.2 years. Now there are some men who say it's because we worry them to death, but we're not going to go along with that, are we?
Amen.
This is a man who can sit next to his wife and say, amen. So why am I mentioning all of these figures to you? The point is, we are an aging society, but as someone said to me at the table, from the moment you're born, you're going into the process of aging. It's important for me to realize that I had to look at aging very differently. I had a good role model, my mom, in the sense as I watched her grow older. I also saw the things that I would have to face health-wise. And then I also learned something about being very independent. A short story. It is time for us young folks to learn how to let the old folks do what they want to do. There really is no role reversal. She's still mama, I'm still daughter, and she's still the boss. I may not like it that way, but the reality is that's the way it is. When Mother started falling in our house when we lived in Ansley Park and had lived for 25 years, and she was in the carriage house and I was in the main house, she started falling. I knew then it was important for her to live in the house with us. We didn't want to take a 103-year-old house and tear it apart and make it into something where she would feel comfortable. So we moved to a new house. We did the terrace level for Mother, exactly the way she wanted it. She lived there for 6 months, and when we came back from vacation, she said, I don't like it here. my friends can't get in the gate because the house was gated. It's too much trouble. I need to be around people my own age. I was insulted. We had changed our whole life around for her. How in the world could she say she's moving out? John had coffee with her every morning. What was she doing leaving us? I'm her only child. Selfishness stepped in the way. But to see the difference in my mother now, when she was living with me, and the difference with living in her retirement community, is to see a woman who is still giving, sharing, and having the time of her life. She really did need to be around people her own age. Important lesson for me to learn. Just as she wanted control of her future, I want control of mine. So that means you have to plan for it. Luckily, I've always had a good job with a good career, so I've been able to do that. My mother did not. My mother worked for minimum wage all of her life. Her Social Security check wouldn't even cover the cost of gasoline to drive from Henry County, where I now live, to here. So it is incumbent upon me to take care of her the way she took care of me. But that did not mean that I had the right to give her orders about where she was to live, how she was to live, and who she was to be with. And that's one of the things you have to think about in terms of this aging community. Because if my mother's like that at 90, and she's a child from the 40s when she graduated from high school in 1944, and I'm a baby boomer, and as independent as we are, my daughter Claire is going to have a hard time. Which means I have to prepare for myself and make my wants and needs known and have it written down. Now, for me as a baby boomer, I've also decided that I am not aging, I'm marinating. Because I am moving into the new me. When I was in television, I called myself the Dolly Parton and the Madonna of television news. Because not only did I change my hairdos and colors as much as I wanted to, I always wanted to be contemporary. So that's who I am. My mother laughs all the time and said, I came a month early. I was really supposed to be born in November. But I came a month early, she says, because I had a lot of living to do. Well, that living did not stop when I retired from WSB. As a baby boomer, I'm determined that just because I'm retired, I'm not going to get tired. I plan to wear out rather than rust out, another of my mother's sayings, which is important. You've got to plan how are you going to spend those, quote, retirement years. For me, it meant doing the things that I was never able to do because I was trying to be responsible. So by that I mean, I'm in graduate school, up there with kids who could be my grandchildren, but enjoying working with this next generation, seeing how they think, but getting the skills I need to be able to teach them. But also, I'm doing things like Zumba. And our group will be performing before the Falcons game on Monday, and I will be out there. In other words, I don't care what people think about me and what people my age are supposed to do. I am reinventing for myself what 65 means. It also means not only being involved in Zumba, giving speeches, going to school, it means giving back. I love volunteering. Not only because is it a way for me to meet new people, it's a way also to do new skills. Once Meals on Wheels Atlanta, we finish our capital campaign, and we have a little exercise area. My goal is to have my Zumba certification by then, so that I can do Zumba classes at Meals on Wheels Atlanta. Now, why? Why? Because most people, when they think of that group, they think of people who just need food. But Meals on Wheels Atlanta also does repairs for homes so people can stay in their homes. But if we can get people like me in their 50s and 60s to come exercise at Meals on Wheels Atlanta. We can then do a cross-cultural, cross-generational thing that will help not only our organization grow, but help those young people transition into that later part of life a lot easier. Because we still have stereotypes about what aging means. Think about it. How long does it take you if you have gray hair? And for those of you, is my hair really this gray? No, I bleach it. It's mixed gray. I bleach it. Why do I make it white? Because I got so angry seeing how people with white hair and mixed gray hair are often treated in restaurants, are treated driving on the expressway. They expect you to be the slow person in the lane. I just decided it's okay to belong to the Silver Fox Squad, so that's what I'm going to be. But the reality is, have you noticed an elderly person in a store, good income, they get ignored? Or I can remember taking Mother to the doctor's office, a perfectly good doctor, and she asked them for her card back, and the woman said, "Oh, I don't have it." And Mama finally said to her, "I'm having a problem with my knee, not with my memory." And the girl looked around, and guess what? She found the card. But certain thoughts about the elderly come up that stereotypes, and I am determined we're going to break. I'm glad I heard somebody was in here from AARP. Why isn't there a talk show anywhere on the air aimed at those of us who look like us? We have more income. We do things. We buy things. We travel. But nobody does shows aimed at us. I mean, I can think of 50 topics we could do just from people in this room, from the things I heard that people are doing in their communities. Those are good stories. Why isn't anybody interested? The only way I'm going to get covered, you're telling me, is if I go out and do something really crazy? Isn't it a shame we had all of these people who were sitting at this table honored today, and there was not one television camera in here? Now, if one of them had pulled out a gun and gone postal, everybody would have been here. My point is, we've got to get better at selling ourselves too. We've got to tell TV stations, radio stations, and newspapers that the young people you're trying to attract don't have the finances that you need to keep your station on the air. That the young people you are trying to attract are more interested in social networking than political networking, and that we're the ones who vote. Nothing. That's as far as I'm going to go with that political tirade. Because then Sam Massell's going to think I'm running for something, and I'm not. So what am I saying? Since I have become a senior, and yes, I got my AARP at 50, and I use my discounts, I am not my grandmother's example of what a senior citizen is or should be. No one is. You have to define for yourself what you're going to be. So what do I want you to do? I want you to stay engaged. Be a part of something that gives you joy. I want you to do what your honorees have done. They stay informed. Whether it's going back to school, reading, belonging to clubs, discussion groups, whatever it is, stay informed. And I want you to stay alive. I get so tired of people saying, "I'm not going to the doctor because they may find something." Yeah? And if they do, guess what? You're going to be here a lot longer. It is important for us to take control of our health. And I also mean that is extremely important with seniors, that it's okay to say, "I want a second opinion." Oftentimes I find seniors are afraid to use their clout and raise questions and force issues when it comes to their health. Yes, he or she is the physician, but in the end, it's your body. And the more informed you are, the better off you should be. So be proactive. You should be walking. You should be watching what you eat. You should be exercising in other ways. The important thing is to take care of your health. Get those regular checkups and don't be afraid about what they might find. Because guess what? If they find something good, you'll be happy to hear it. Last but not least, my mom always says that none of us came here to stay. she's right. I thought of that today when I thought about Evelyn Lowry, whose funeral is going to be today. And I look at what she left behind, and I guess that's my message to you. What good is a life worth lived and well lived if you didn't do something for someone else? None of us got to where we are by ourselves. Some of you are children of the Depression. Others of you are children of the Depression. But the reality is, no matter who you are, somewhere in your life, someone did something for you that got you over a hump. And it's important to give back, particularly to our young children. I've learned that I've got to respect the stubbornness of some people, because I can be stubborn too. I've learned that 60 is really not the new 40. It's 60. And calling that will not change it at all. Clairol, L'Oreal, facelifts, tummy tucks, all are cosmetics. The best way to stay young, one of my viewers sent it to me. And on that, I will close. How to stay young. Start throwing out the non-essential numbers. This includes your age, your weight, and your height. Now, I got to stop there. Funny story about Evelyn Lowry. I went to see Dr. Lowry, and I said, Dr. Lowry, 3 different years for your wedding anniversary. And he started laughing. He said Evelyn didn't want anybody to know how old she was. So she would give different years for her age of birth, and then she would also give different years for when they got married. He said, to this point, I can't even remember when we got married. But it's close to 70 years. So they finally found this wedding certificate, and it's actually 68. And I said, well, what about her age? He said, I don't know. So she did. She threw out all the non-essential numbers. That includes your age, your weight, and your height. Let the doctors worry about that. That's why you pay them. Keep only cheerful friends. The grouches pull you down. But that's what I love about my mother. She cut out all of her negative friends, and I finally learned to do that. You know, the person who calls you up wants to tell you all the bad news, who died, who's going through a divorce, who lost their home, about their aches and pains. And when you listen to that negative stuff, what does it do? It pulls you down. So keep only cheerful friends. The grouches will pull you down. Keep learning. Learn more about the computer. I love the lady in here who's getting her area ready with Wi-Fi and teaching people how to do Twitter and how to do Facebook and all of that. You've got to stay up with the times. I never laughed harder than when I was in class and this fellow student who's about 24, his phone is just going crazy. And finally he looks down and he says, it's my grandmother texting me. I thought that was really cool. His grandmother was texting him. And he says she knows that's the only way she can get me. Smart grandmother. Stay current. Keep learning. Computer, crafts, gardening, whatever. Never let the brain idle. As my mama always says, an idle mind is the devil's workshop. And the devil's name sometimes is Alzheimer's. Enjoy the simple things. Okay, if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. Wow, you're a good group. You'd be surprised how if I do that some places, everybody gets uptight because they don't know how to just be themselves and to be silly for a moment. When was the last time you ran through a sprinkler in your bathing suit? Who cares what the neighbors say? You're laughing, but now you're thinking about it. And that gets to the next point of staying young. Laugh often, long, and loud. Laugh until you can gasp for air. And then the tears happen. Endure, grieve, and move on. The only person who is with us our entire life, ourselves. Be alive while you're alive. Surround yourself with what you love, whether it's family, pets, keepsakes, music, plants, hobbies, whatever. Your home is your refuge. As much as I love the city of Atlanta, when it was time for me to retire, we looked around for a house on a lake because I wanted to be near the water. I wanted to have that peace that the water brings. So we built our house in Henry County on Lake Spivey, and a lot of you who grew up in this area know where Lake Spivey is. It's one of the best kept secrets around. But there's something about when I pull into that driveway and the 2 German Shepherds come running, and now 10 puppies too. It is a joy to walk through the front door and see that water and go sit on the porch, have a glass of wine, and breathe. There's nothing like it. I sleep there better than I've ever slept in my life because it truly is my refuge. Cherish your health. If it is good, preserve it. If it is unstable, improve it. If it is beyond what you can improve, get help. Oh, I love this one. Don't take guilt trips. Take a trip to the mall, even to the next country or the next county, but not to where guilt is. If it's in the past, leave it in the past. And tell the people you love that you love them at every opportunity. And love is not just saying I love you, but love is also through your actions. Being there, being a shoulder, being an ear, being the heart. Aging doesn't scare me. I remember as a young woman thinking, oh, when I turn 30, life will be over. And now the way I look at it, the reality is I am in the last third of my life. I don't know how much more time I have, but I do know this. Every minute, every second I have left, I'm going to enjoy. And I'm going to teach my daughter that aging doesn't mean moving to the back of the room or sitting quietly. Aging means doing Zumba at the Hawks game or at the Falcons game. It means riding my bicycle. It means participating in breast cancer walks. It means reading to my first graders. It means kicking off my shoes and putting my feet in the water at Lake Spivey. It means wearing a mini skirt even with varicose veins. It means putting on those high heels because they make me feel good. In other words, aging for me is being who I am and not regretting for one moment who I used to be. Aging for me is just a part of the natural process of growing, caring, loving, and sharing. And for that I say thank you for this award. But positive icon, I'm not so sure. I'm just working as what Dennis the Menace used to say. I'm just working at trying to be the very best of being me. Thank you. So now Walter and I are going to talk, right?
Right, Jackie's gonna.
Okay,
I'm going to
Jack.
say a few words about Walter. He's my colleague and he's my friend. He's a transformational leader in this field, an exceptional in association management, and he has a lot to manage. Between Leading Age Georgia, our parent association, and the Georgia Institute on Aging, which provides educational learning, professional development, and that is his passion, his professional development and really leading in that way and modeling the way. And then the Center for Positive Aging, which is our heart, which gives back and leads elders and their caregivers and people in the community to find and connect to you all who are in this wonderful field. So without further ado, we'd like for you to join us.
Great, thank you. Is this working?
Yes, it is.
Um,
Oh, Mother and I did not call each other and say, what color are you wearing? Like minds are just that. I walked in and she's dressed in red and we both started laughing.
like a power couple.
Power couple, that's right.
I hope you noticed from last year we've done things a little differently this year, and Mayor Massell, you got out of a lot. You know, he told Monica that he had to do a little dance, and so I don't know if that worried you or not, but
No,
anyway. So
I was going to do a
thank you for doing
Zumba
that.
routine.
So, anyway, I can't believe that you actually told the group to run through the sprinklers in their birthday suits.
Swimsuits, Walter.
Oh, okay. All right.
See, your mind's in the wrong place, but that's a good thing.
Okay. So you got that clear, right? So you heard it right. But anyway, you know, it's just that voice and that laugh and that hair and these outfits. I mean, it's just you. And, Atlanta has watched and loved you for so many years, and it's just, isn't it just amazing just to hear a voice and see it. And one of the goals was to tie this to our field and what we're doing through our institute, our center, and our association, and what does all this look like as we hope that we make Georgia a better place for people to retire and grow old. And so the idea was just to steal from your close-ups model and let me ask you a few questions, and then there's always things that people want to know.
Okay.
And one of the things that you were known for is in your close-ups, it's like, how did you find out those things? So I'm not going to do that to you. I haven't snooped around that much. But I do want to pick your brain a little bit about getting back to the hair and the clothes, because to me, it really made it feel like that you're modeling a positive image of yourself. And as I think about our members throughout the state serve over 126,000 older Georgians every year. And they come in all shapes and sizes, cultures, languages, economic, education. And how do we see them and honor them as human beings and really look beyond what we think we might see when we first see them? Because I think you've modeled that so well. And how do you do that?
I think it's because of my mom. I mean, my mother I can still remember her getting ready to go out as a child and seeing her taking such fastidious time laying out her outfit, making sure the earrings, and I still have a lot of my mother's jewelry, costume jewelry from the 40s that is just priceless. And, I even have boots of hers that were suede with the real fur around them. This woman was a dresser. She really was. So I grew up always seeing it. And remember, she was making minimum wage. She worked as a maid. But when she walked out of the house, she looked like she was the woman who the maid was coming to work for, okay? So my mother has always had a sense of style. And even as she has gotten older, she's moved from heels to flats. But it's important for her to always have that image of who she is. And I think a lot of times people look at seniors and they think, yes, you're going to be in flats, but they're not supposed to be sparkly. Or they expect you to have on your sweater and huddled up. And yeah, you may have days like that. But I think you have to learn to meet people where they are. And that's kind of hard for some of us because we have this image of our grandmothers who sat in a rocking chair and were not involved. Today's grandmothers aren't like that. So for me, there's no such thing as that's inappropriate for a 60-year-old or a 70-year-old or an 80-year-old or a 90-year-old. Whatever makes them happy is important. And I think people get lost in that. They have their image of how you're supposed to be at 70. And if you don't fit that image, then you're a problem. And I think people have to meet people where they are. We want to be more independent than, my grandmother lived with my mother and with us. But my mother didn't want to live with me, and I don't want to live with Claire. So, heavens forbid. She doesn't keep house the way I do. We kill each other. So you have to really know who the people are. That means interviewing them the way you would an employee versus interviewing them as a person who's coming to live in your facility. Because if you were interviewing an employee, you'd want to know everything about them, their background, their schooling, everything. Whereas if it's someone who's just coming in to live at the facility, it's basically, okay, who are your sons, your daughters, yeah, what did you do, but you really don't go into it. So I say treat the elderly the way you would like to be treated. The only difference between them and you is maybe about 20 years. And I think you need to not pigeonhole people. And that happens often with the elderly. I mean, I had a guy the other day who just thought, don't you all tell the state troopers I did this. Guy the other day who, I have a 35-year-old Porsche 911 Targa. I drive it. I put every mile on it. In 35 years, it only has 95,000 miles on it because I don't drive it all the time. It's a cool engine car. You don't drive it a lot in the heat. So I was on the expressway, and I was in the middle lane versus being in the fast lane versus being in the slow lane. I'm doing 60. And this guy comes up and gets on, and I know he saw the gray hair, and he's thinking, I'm just going to do this. He left me alone after that. I'll just say, I downshifted, went in, and that was the end of that. People make assumptions about you because of your gray hair.
I find that true. That's fine. That's good. Let me ask you a few quick questions about,
Don't y'all tell the police.
as an anchor, kind of a most difficult moment.
The most difficult moment, I think, for me as an anchor came the night of the Olympic Park bombing. At that point, I was living in Ansley Park. I literally had gone home, had taken my makeup off, was about to get in the bed when I got a call. Monica, bomb's gone off in Centennial Olympic Park. We need you. Turn around, you go back, and you have to do the news. You're getting information as it comes in. You're trying to check things as it comes in because you don't want to inflame the situation. That was really hard. I had to keep my, what I call sensible head, and not let emotions come into it. And so that was one time when you just go into strict gear, do what you have to do, ask the questions you have to ask, and then when it's over with, then you breathe. I will never forget in 9/11, I was in Florida on vacation, and my news director called and said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm getting ready to go for a run." He said, "Turn on the television." About the time he said, "Turn on the television," I turned it on. The second plane was going into the World Trade Center. I went, "That's not real." It didn't look real. It looked like something out of a movie. And then he said, "We're under attack." Another famous Monica story. They had closed all the airports. I needed to get back here. And the good old Porsche 911, I was in it. And I got from Destin to Atlanta in 3.5 hours. There were no policemen on the road because they were all where they needed to be. And I got back in time to do the news. And I will never forget, we were just in that mode all week. And it didn't hit me until I was at Mass on Sunday at Our Lady of Lourdes. And all of a sudden, we were praying for the victims. And I just started crying then. But I had not allowed myself to have those kinds of emotions on the news set because it would have been inappropriate. It was just do your job, ask the questions, do the research. But when I got to church, it was a safe place for me to let go.
Okay. How about most memorable moment in a feel-good kind of way?
In a feel-good kind of way would be the interview I did with Dolly Parton. She was so funny, and I loved her. It was like talking to a girlfriend. She is one of those deliciously warm, funny, smart, doesn't take herself seriously type of people. And I like that. She knew what she had to do in the business in order to make it, but she also knew to be true to herself. One of the most embarrassing things that ever happened to me in television news came because of Dolly Parton, and she wasn't there. I share this story with my students all the time, and I'll share it with you all who have grandchildren or children who sometimes use profanity. I was doing the news in Louisville, anchoring, and in a commercial break for Does Detergent, Dolly Parton and Porter Wagner, my weatherman who used to drink his lunch said something very inappropriate about Dolly Parton. And I said, "Oh, shut up," his name. And then I said the dirty word for feces. Sugar, honey, iced tea? Everybody in Louisville and southern Indiana heard me say the feces word on television. Well, we wear earplugs. And so he said, "Monica, your mic was open. Nobody heard Bill, but they sure heard you." So when they came back, I immediately said, "If you heard some profanity used on WHAS, I apologize." It's not that, so that was it. So after the show, I go out. I have 2 phone calls. The first is my news director who's laughing his head off saying that happens to everyone. Never say anything around the microphone you wouldn't want your mother to hear. And oddly enough, the other call was from my mother. And my mother goes, "Monica Rosie Lee Jones Kaufman." That's my whole name. Yes, Monica Rosie, not Rosa, Rosie, for my grandmother Lee Kaufman. Why would you put something in your mouth you wouldn't hold in your hand? Lick 'em.
Wow.
So, those are the worst things that have happened, the best things that have happened. Another thing was actually being in Washington, D.C. when Barack Obama was sworn in as president. And that was good to be up there with all the other reporters because that was history in the making. So I have had a wonderful career, but there's still more to do.
Speaking of that, history in the making, let me skip because I was looking at an article that Joseph Lowry wrote, and we do want to honor him today because the funeral of his wife is going on right now.
It probably still is. It started at 11, and even though it's in a Methodist church, by the time all those people talk, it's still going on, I bet.
Right.
This is a black funeral, remember.
But one of those things he said in an Atlanta magazine article, and I want to just really ask you about that, and the question is going to be, were you aware of the significance at the time that you were making history? So the story is, and he was quoted as saying that Monica was coming into the living rooms of white folks every night at the time when most white folks only encountered us as waiters and maids. And she was coming in as an equal. She was a star. They had to pay attention as she was telling them the news of the day. It was a tremendous turning point. And for you, when you were probably 27, your late 20s, did you have any idea of the significance? And
No.
what do you
No.
think about that?
I hear that and I go, are you talking about me? Because when you're thrown into a situation, Don Elliott Heald hired me, the late Don Elliott Heald, and they had decided that they wanted to make the news set representative of what the city of Atlanta was becoming. Until I went on the air in 75, there had not been a woman on the 6 o'clock news, and there had not been a minority, so I was a twofer. So he really felt it was time. I still contend, had there been Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff, I wouldn't have made it. Because I think this blogosphere is so negative, and so much now is done by research rather than done by feelings. I would have been destroyed because of the types of calls that we got, the negative things that people said. But luckily, it was just on the phone and in letters. I was blessed to work with John Pruitt, who is just an unbelievably wonderful Christian man. And he made it really easy for me. But I had no idea what I was walking into. No one told me that that was the role. It didn't occur to me. I mean, my mother had said, oh, that's a great move. Atlanta's chocolate city. It is in the South, though, but Atlanta's okay. Some people in Kentucky and Louisville think it's the South. The others don't. We're on the Mason-Dixon line. So, no, I did not know what the impact would be. But I now know what the impact was, because once I did okay, then the other stations added women and minorities. And there had been women and minorities doing the noon news, doing the weekends, but the 6 o'clock show was the bread and butter show. It's where you made your money. I would not have made it if it had not been for John Pruitt and his kindness, and also for Don Elliott Heald. Mother told me something before I came here. She said, you're going to a new city. You've got to get involved. So the first thing I did was get a church. The second thing I did was found a volunteer organization. That was Literacy Action. And then Exodus, which is now called the Cities and School Program. So Girl Scouts, I found groups that could become my home and could give me what I wasn't getting from the viewers. Because to black people, I was too black, or I didn't have an afro big enough. To white people, I shouldn't have been there. No one was calling in to say, we like you and we're proud of you. But I do know, because I had that church, because I had my volunteer work, I was receiving sustenance, care, and validation from people other than on the air. I had no idea. I had no idea what Reverend Lowry's talking about, and I've heard John Pruitt say it too. Maybe if I'd known, I wouldn't have made it. God takes care of fools and babies.
Right.
And I was a little bit of both.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about change because, as you know, with economy, healthcare, just tons and tons of changes, and so many more elders. Georgia's the 5th fastest growing state for people to move here to retire. So our members are facing a lot of changes, and I wanted to ask you a little bit about that, because dealing with people from different cultures, I guess, as well, but also things like technology, because I noticed while we were eating lunch, I thought, I can't believe she's sitting here checking her emails, but she was tweeting. She was taking pictures of some of the recipients in the program and tweeting, so it's like, wow. So that's pretty cool. So with technology and all the different things that are going on, you know, I think that you've worked through, I read, 7 different presidents, 6 Georgia governors, the doubling of the population in our state. So you've been around so much change. And what it is about change that can help us be comfortable with moving forward?
Well, I think you have to find your place within the change. Mother says, and this is another one of her favorite sayings, never be the first to try the new or the last to try the old. Because usually when things are new, it has glitches, like the new the new 7 phone.
Right.
That phone is causing all that, and they'll work out the glitches. The station told us, don't update your phones until they work out the glitches. But that's the point. And if you wait too long to try the old, then it's antiquated. I think you have to find where you fit within the change. I can't get my mother to use a cell phone. So she just has a big phone with big numbers that work for her. But that's right for her. I can't force her to do it. My generation, those who were born 46 and 45, 46, 47, I think we adapt better to change because we have seen so much change in our lives. Think about it. I went from a segregated school system to an integrated school system. Think about it. I'm the first person in my family, my mom's the first person in my family on the maternal side to graduate from high school. I am the second and the first to graduate from college. I've gone from walking everywhere because she never learned to drive. That's a whole other story. She tried a couple of times and we ended up driving down the middle of the parkway and all of a sudden we had 4 flat tires. But as I said, that's another story on another day. We won't tell that. But she did get me a car at 16, a custom Ford 500, so I can drive her everywhere. But you know, I've gone from being poor to being upper middle class. So change is just a part of this generation. We have lived through a president being assassinated. Another president, they attempted to assassinate him. We've lived through how many wars, from Vietnam and Korea to the war in Iraq. This generation has seen a lot of change. And in order to get what you want, you've got to stay current, which means you find more of us going to the libraries and using the computers if we can't afford them, in order to be able to understand the Affordable Health Care Act. So this generation, I say, is more, how shall I call it, what's the word I'm looking for? We are resilient and we are willing to change. Now, I tell you who I'm worried about. I'm worried about the folks behind us, because they're technically savvy, but they aren't real good talking to each other. Do you know what I mean? They're so used to doing stuff on Facebook and Twitter, and you know, they're sitting next to each other and they're having conversation on their cell phone, texting. What's that about? Talk to each other. That's what worries me about them. They don't seem to have the personal skills that we have of talking and writing, you know, penmanship, really writing. I worry about them. They aren't as sociable. They tend to be more insular.
That's good. You
We'll
know,
see what happens.
we have our Center for Positive Aging is the consumer arm of the association, like the institute that we're here to celebrate today. But we've been doing some focus groups, and I wanted to ask you a question of folks that we've been talking to. And for you, what would constitute a quality experience when you have to access any part of this aging services network? What would constitute a quality experience for you?
For me, being able to pick up the telephone and call and not hear, for this service, hit number 1. For this, hit number 2. Please listen to all the options because they have changed. I hate that. I don't like talking to machines. I like to talk to people. A quality experience for me is talking to a human being. Yes, I can do it on the computer, but there's something about having a person's name, hearing their voice, and knowing some action will be taken. Now, I know people say we don't have staff to do that, but it is irritating for me. Imagine my mom trying to get something. Hit number 1, hit number 2, hit number 3, and then if you need to go back to 1, you have to wait to go through the whole thing to do it. I think we need to be more friendly when it comes to telephones. And I know that's a big expense. I understand it. But personal service means everything. Hearing a friendly voice.
That's good, because we're actually just ended a pilot project with some of our members through our center, trying to help them have the big picture of Aging Services Network and how it works. So when a consumer, anybody comes to them, that they'll be able to actually speak with them and help them instead of saying, wrong place, sorry, go somewhere else. And that really makes me want to move to the idea of trust. As a news anchor, there had to be a lot of trust there in what you were saying and that your research was accurate. And we want to be the trusted voice when we do public policy work so that legislators and regulators and people that are listening trust the source, which we feel like are our members that are on the ground trying to do the right thing. And we want to be the trusted source of information to really help older Georgians get what they need. So is there anything that you can say about trust and how is that built?
Well, I think the first thing with trust, I trust someone who listens to me. I don't want to be talked down to. I don't want to be told what to do. I like people to ask me questions about what are my needs, what are my desires, what are the things I don't like. And I think oftentimes in a institutional setting, you almost become a caretaker. And when you look at yourself as a caretaker, you don't ask the people who are involved, what do you want? What can we provide to make it better for you? To their children, what is it you need from us to make it easier for you? For instance, I'll give an example. My mother hates the food where she is. Hates it. Just hates it. She's not the only one. They all complain about the food. It's like being in a college dorm again. But, when you hear it from so many people, why don't you do something about it? Why do we still? But then you go, well, Mother, do you want to move? No, I want to die here. And that's literally what she tells me. No, the food is horrible. I'll have people bring food in, but I'm going to stay here because I like my friends. To me, a better choice would be, when you keep hearing this over and over again from the same people, then it means look at how can we improve the food. Let's talk to them about what's wrong with the food. Is it too salty? Where's a dietitian? Something as simple as that. Is there a women's program where the women can get together and do something that's just for them, or do you always have to do it with the guys? To the few men who were there, what's available for them? What do they want to do? Far too often, we present things to people without getting their input as to what they want. And to me, that's very important.
Absolutely vital. Just to start wrapping this up, as you continue through your journey with the aging process, I guess like we all are, what do you anticipate is going to become more and more important to you?
Well, I think for me right now, when we built our house, we built everything with the doors wide enough, so if someone has to have a walker or a wheelchair, our toilets are raised higher because we know, that we are going to get older, so we didn't want to have to retrofit our dream home. All living spaces downstairs, all play space like the pool table and stuff like that is upstairs. I've anticipated the fact that, my mom has problems with her knees. I'm already starting to have it, so I have to look at, am I going to have surgery? Am I willing to do that, or am I going to do Tai Chi? What things can I do in a holistic way? And that, for me, is the big change for me. I've always been strictly, medical doctor route, and I still do my medical doctor. But I also am looking at holistic medicine now, and looking at the value of doing things like Tai Chi. I am no longer in the sense that I have learned very quickly that what may be handsome to you may be ugly to me, but that doesn't mean it's not good. So I have learned to be much more accepting of other people's views. I may not agree with them, but I allow them to believe what they believe. That's their belief. But allow me to believe what I believe, and we can respect each other's beliefs. As I age, I've also found that I have no patience with foolishness. I really don't. There's something about turning 60 that turned my brain. And I will quickly not put up with foolishness. I will now, in the old days, I was very, how shall I say it, diplomatic. Now it's bull, I tell you it's bull. And we may disagree about it, but the point is, I don't want anger, I don't want hatred, I don't want dissension in my life. And so I don't put up with it. But I think for me, aging means being the best that I can be, doing what my mother still does. When she's great friends with everyone in her building. If anybody's sick, she's there to wait on them. When new people come in, she's the tour guide. It's really, for me, being a part of service. That, if I have to say, the thing I like most about aging now is I have the time to give to those who gave to me. Service, to me, is the hallmark of wonderful aging.
That's great.
Yeah.
So these are many of we believe our members are the key leaders in the state as far as supporting the work of in our field and for providing quality of life for older Georgians.
But can I say something real quick?
Go ahead.
As you told me at the table, we've been aging since the day we were here. And I think what's most important for those of you in the business to remember, you are working with the aged while you are aging. And as you treat them, you could well be treated. What goes around comes around. So it's really important to remember what you're doing is not only for their benefit, but to your own. Because you're teaching the next generation how to handle you.
That's great. And that's what I was going to ask you if you had a comment to them. So let's consider that it. That was
Well, I have one more added. The one you saw up there, she says, it's what you do with what you have that makes you what you are. That's extremely important. And the reason that's important, it means there are no limits set on anyone. And don't let limit anyone because of their age, their condition, their complexion, their race, their religion. God didn't set any limits on us. So don't you do it.
all right. Thank you so much. All right. Just a few final comments here is just really, I wanted to thank Robbie Gerald and Samantha Eves for being our co-chairs. It was a lot of work this year. Thank you guys. Especially want to thank Jackie Thornton because this is one of her main projects. So and Susan Watkins and we're kind of backup support staff, and so Susan, thank you for just to thank our sponsors. You saw them on the program, and they've been listed as well. And also the idea that you have supported the Institute. Because you're here today, you've shown your support to our Institute. So we really appreciate that, and it's really what it's all about. So I think that what we'll do is just we'll have the song, the Changing Lives song that we commissioned a few years ago to play as you leave, and most of you have heard that. And so I know some of you still want to take some pictures We want to say hello to Monica and her mother. And so we'll just let you network and start finding your way out, and we'll show our honorees again and listen to our Changing Lives theme song. So thank you so much and for being here, and we're investing in ourselves, and it's really cool. Thanks a lot.
Because